Thank you so much to the Baltimore fans. I'm sorry about the wait. It took way too long, but we're here. It's mock draft day. We're going to go through this roster. We're going to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses, how they need to get better, what can they do to get over the hump, right? This is the team that's been on the cusp for many, many years. So we'll talk about all that. We'll get into a free agency strategy and do a 7-round mock draft. Let's start off with a discussion about the roster. With the offensive line, we begin at the tackle room. Ronnie Stanley, Roger Rosengarten. You got Josh Jones as a swingman. This offense tackle room was very, very good this season. They were also available. They stayed healthy. Ronnie Stanley, that's been one of the big knocks for him. He's still one of the better left tackles in football. However, it's just been the availability that's been the key thing for him. Now, he's going into a contract year, and that's the big decision we have to make in this whole process is do we re-sign Ronnie Stanley with that understanding that he does have a little bit of availability issues, even though he stayed healthy this season. Those question marks are something we have to keep in the back of our mind and possibly look at this whole realm of possibilities of Roger Rosengarten. Could he move to the left tackle position? So many things that we could do. Ideally, of course, you bring back Ronnie Stanley, and I do think that is very much a top priority for them. Cap-wise will be a challenge. This team is a little bit up against it. They don't have a whole ton of money available. They can clear some money. They can open up some deals. They can extend some guys and create space that way. So there's a lot of realms for them to create more cap space and to bring back guys like Ronnie Stanley. However, no matter what, they're going to have to let somebody or a couple of players go to be able to figure this whole thing out. So Ronnie Stanley is going to be someone we talk about more when we get into the free agency period. Nothing against him. I mean, he had a great season, Pro Bowl level, one of the top left tackles in football. It comes down to the overall landscape of keeping this guy with some of those injury concerns over the past couple of years. Is he over that? Is he past that? Or we feel good about that? Or do we want to give him $20+ million? Because that's what we're looking at this point. New England, there are going to be plenty of teams that are going to be lining up with those cash piles saying, hey, come on, play for us. We'll give you the bank. Roger Rosengarten, I do want to mention, coming out of Washington, he looked rough at the beginning of the year. He played phenomenal. As the season went on, he got better and better, became a plus starter. I'm kind of averaging out that rating because at the beginning of the year, like I talk about, it was a struggle. It was a welcome to the NFL, Chris Jones. And then, boom, as the season went along, mid-season, even after like week 5, things started to click for him. And it just that upward trajectory ended up becoming a really, really good starter for this team. And the other question, Josh Jones, a free agent, we'll have to talk about that too, because I think it would be bringing him back wouldn't be a bad idea and shouldn't be super expensive with his versatility. And we go on to the interior, which also has some questions here. Patrick McCarry is a free agent, and he's just been one of those dudes that plays every single position for them. He carries a ton of different hats. Somebody I really would like to bring back. Once again, did he earn a contract? Absolutely. With his play this season, he was a reliable force for them at the left guard position. And I think that he is going to earn somewhere in that $6 to $9 million range. So is Baltimore willing to pay that? Because they've shown over the years, letting those guys go continually, they just don't pay their interior guys a whole ton of money. So that's something I'm going to watch out for. I would like to bring him back. I'm in favor, just like Ronnie Stanley. You try to bring these guys back if you can. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Andrew Voorhees was the starter early in the season. Injuries arose with him, and ultimately Patrick McCarry ended up taking over there and just solidifying that position for the long haul and was really good. Now, Voorhees did come back and played a little bit in Week 18 and whatnot. So I think he's going to be somebody that at least isn't a rotational player, feel great as depth, and could be the long-term starter for them if they did let go of Patrick McCarry. But that is something you have to look at. And having McCarry back would be nice just in general because of his swing capabilities to be able to play tackle in a pinch, play any of the interior offensive line positions. And then we talk about Tyler Linderbaum. You're good to go there. He's an elite center. Daniel Falalele, another guy, just like that whole right side of the offensive line struggled at the beginning of the season, but they got better and better and better. And by the end of the year, Falalele was playing at a really, or a good level. I wouldn't call him a Pro Bowler. I mean, he got a Pro Bowl bid. You know, sometimes you can say, well, you know what I mean? But he was very, very good for them and somebody that brings the pop. He brings the boom. He's got that power profile. He's probably one of the biggest offensive linemen in the NFL. He does have some limitations with his lateral agility. That especially showed up at the beginning of the season. Overall, though, he has earned a stay as your starter going into next season, and I feel good about that. Overall here, my big priority would just bring back Patrick McCarry. If you lose him, then you're going to need to bring somebody in, whether it's that's a free agent, and I would probably recommend you bring in somebody as a free agent here. Whether as a tackle seems more like a draft need. I think the interior is more of a veteran free agency route. Since you have some youth with Andrew Voorhees, who definitely can step in there and be the starter if you were to lose Patrick McCarry. Now, with that being said, I still think we'll spend like a late round pick on this to get some more depth and possibly future, because Daniel Faalele is going to be going into a contract year. So I'm just going to, and Ben Cleveland's a free agent. So I'll draft a guard, but it's not like a first, second, third round type of need, in my opinion, at least at this moment. We'll see how confident they feel if they were to let go McCarry. That would really be a key to me. If they draft somebody in the top 3 rounds, then clearly they don't feel comfortable with Voorhees. Overall, though, my view on this would be draft somebody day 3 and develop, etc., and get some more depth. Let's go into the tight end room now. Mark Andrews, everybody's going to talk about the drop in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. Yes, it was painful. He finished the season off in a bad way. Overall, though, he's still one of the better tight ends in the NFL, and what he brings to the table, I'm not looking to cut him and save that money. Like, it's, to me, is not worth it. He is a great possession receiver, normally has reliable hands. He did start the season off a little shaky, and he just got better and better as season. And that's in general for this team, this football team, and that's normal for good football teams. You start off the season a little rocky, and you build this thing up as the season progresses. And Mark Andrews, he's a good inline blocker, too. He's a better inline blocker than Isaiah Likely. And I do think Charlie Kolar could end up filling some of that void if you lost Mark Andrews. However, I just think that it's not worth getting rid of Mark Andrews at this moment. And like I talked about, Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar certainly have stepped up. Isaiah Likely has been a really, really good tight end, really good receiving tight end. And the way you can use him in a multitude of ways as like a hybrid guy who can play a little H-back even, play in the slot, can play out. So he's a versatile tight end. You have your more inline guys with Mark Andrews and Charlie Kolar. I will draft somebody, though, here with Mark Andrews going into a contract year. I think this is like a 3rd to 5th round type of need for this team, trying to find somebody in that sweet spot to be able to develop and hopefully find a long-term answer there. And then we move on to the wide receiver position. This is also an area that I'm going to be looking at adding to. Adding somebody with like an X-style build to this roster. You got Rashad Bateman, you got Zay Flowers, those guys locked in as your starters going into next season. Nelson Agholor being a free agent, more than likely. Not say that Aguilar's been bad or anything like that. I just doubt he ends up returning here. Especially with Tylan Wallace kind of emerging, I would spend my resources there, try to bring him back, because the way he showed in limited sample size too, and as the end of the season, he was a really key cog for them. And Devontae Walker, I imagine, hopefully he can get some more reps in the limited sample size he showed. His first catch was a touchdown. I want to see more from him. Overall, though, I would just say that this is an area you can spend like a mid-round pick on. Possibly could be an early need. I don't think it is, though. I think especially with the way that they run the tight ends, you got Zay Flowers as your number 1. Rashad Bateman's turned into a really good number 2. You don't need to spend a 1st, 2nd, 3rd round pick on a number 3 guy. I think 4th through 5th, 6th round, you can add more competition in there. But the hope is that Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker can step up a little bit more. They could even bring in a free agent. And as I talked about, I think there's some good depth in this draft class in those 4th, 5th round range to find that big-bodied X-style receiver. There's guys like Caden Prather, Pat Bryant. You go down the list. There's some guys in that range, Nick Nash, that I think that they can find there and help develop into that bigger-bodied receiver. And then on to the running back position. It all starts with King Henry. And he was just running wild all season long. It was unstoppable in this offense. That read option with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Good luck stopping that as a linebacker. I don't know how you even have a chance to defend that. But, hey, we got to give a shout out to Justice Hill, too. Hill was very good throughout the season as a 3rd down back. His pass protection was excellent for the most part from what I saw throughout the season. I thought he was a good receiving element, too, for them, and a solid runner as well to fill in for Derrick Henry. So having him back as your number 2, you got Keaton Mitchell getting healthy, adds some more spark into the room, a little more explosiveness. I think they're in a really good spot. Rasheen Ali as well. You know, in general, I don't think this is a huge need for them. Maybe even King Henry works into an extension, depending. You don't have to force that or anything like that, but overall, like this running back room, it's maybe a late round throw. Overall, like they're in a really good spot here. Then on to the quarterback position. It's Houdini himself, Lamar Jackson, MVP. Well, unfortunately, it did go to Josh Allen. And hey, no discredit to Josh Allen. He had an incredible season. Lamar Jackson, I probably would have given the nod to. They probably just said, well, since Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills ended up beating the Baltimore Ravens, they decided to give it to him. I feel like there's some bias, even though they say it's just regular season. I feel like Lamar Jackson overall was the best player in the NFL. You take Lamar Jackson out of this offense, this team would have been completely different. So that's just kind of my view on it. Lamar Jackson, though, no matter what, and what he brings to the table as just a runner, we know about that. But this was his season where he felt the most confident. He looked the most confident as a passer. He legit was a good pocket passer this year. Credit to Todd Monken, too, a great offensive coordinator. Oh my gosh, as a Jets fan, I actually kind of wanted him as our head coach. I'm cool with Aaron Glenn, but Todd Monken deserves a lot of credit for this offense, the play design. He is one of the better offensive coordinators, at least this season in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, though, the only question that I have here is who's your backup going into next season? Is Devin Leary after kind of a mid preseason showing? We'll see. Keep an eye out on that. You could bring back Josh Johnson, who is a solid backup to have. They just haven't really shown to pay backups a whole ton of money, and I don't think that they will even this offseason either. So we'll see how it all works out. This is not a high priority. Just bring in a veteran backup, and that's really all you need to do. Defense side of the ball. We start off with the edge rushers. And you got a Daffy Owe and you got Kyle Van Noy, two really solid players. Kyle Van Noy earning a Pro Bowl nod and well earned. He was fantastic. Daffy Owe also really, really good. Do they have a true number one guy in this room? I don't think so, but they have a very good edge room. Could it be upgraded? Absolutely. Like if you could get a Myles Garrett, 100%. They're not going to trade for him because it's in division. It's not going to happen. With that being said, though, you got Tavares Robinson, who really stepped up this season as well and was really, really good in rotation there and has some inside-out versatility, very strong at the point of attack, very good run defender, and improved his pass rush through this season. I actually got him see him get to the quarterback a couple of times. You got Adisa Isaac, who will be fully healthy going into his sophomore campaign after a hamstring injury, which limited him in training camp preseason. So I think he'll get a lot more reps next year and get a chance, especially with David Ajabu, just not really, unfortunately, showing enough here at this point. So that, to me, they could always add more talent in here. I don't question that at all. In general, though, I think the bigger areas of need might come on the interior of the defensive line. So that's going to be the area that I'm prioritizing. Overall, though, their edge room looking pretty solid. And as I was just alluding to, the interior for me is more or less the bigger area of need. They've got some questions and some things for the future that they're going to have to start looking at and addressing. Now, Nnamdi Madubuike, top tier interior guy in the NFL. And another thing, the stats and the production don't tell you the full story. He was double teamed, I believe, third most in the NFL out of all the defensive interior guys. And it's for good reason. Like, this dude's a playmaker. He's a stud at getting after the passer. He can line up off the edge and work, and the stunts he picks up and things like that. He's just so dangerous with his athleticism and ability to push the pocket and get after the quarterback. So teams knew that, and that's why they're saying, let's make sure we're double teaming Nnamdi Madubuike because he's that good of a football player. So I'm going to, not worry about the production so much. It's more about the impact that you make. So you got him. You got Travis Jones, who's really emerged as a really good player on that interior. Broderick Washington, I like him as a rotational guy. I just feel like they need to upgrade in this department. And there's really nobody else that they have that feel good about to fill that long-term void. Brent Urban, solid rotational player, and I would bring him back. Like, he's definitely a team favorite and somebody they speak very highly on, and a nice rotational player. With that all, I do think they need to add here, and this is the area that I would be looking at early in the draft. This is a day 2, early day 3, double dip type of consideration because Michael Pierce, at this point too, I don't think he can take on much of a workload. I would like to keep Travis Jones fresh and healthy. So I'm going to try to add a nose 1 tech and also a backup 3-5 tech into the room. I think they need to add both of those guys. So I'm going to be trying to double dip this, or at least add a free agent in here. This is going to be an area we look to really address and add some more help into the room. Moving on to the linebacker position. This is another area that could be a little bit interesting as we go and navigate into the offseason, how they're going to approach this. As of right now, I'm struggling a little bit in terms of what I see. I think this at the moment is probably a day 3 type of pick. Now, you got Roquan Smith. I don't think he had as good of a season as he did last year, but he was very good, still very productive. He's another guy earned a Pro Bowl nod. You got Malik Harrison. I was impressed with Harrison, and what he brings to the table is like a Sam hybrid linebacker. Can play a little on the line, can rush the passer, gives him a strong side dude that can defend against the run, play a little off the ball. Trent Simpson, who was expected to kind of take the reins this season in his sophomore campaign, he kind of hit a first-year wall for him as a full-time starter, and it kind of phased him out as the season progressed. And he's still going through some mental things, I feel like, of this processing and things like that. And I expect him to get better going into year number 3. You got Chris Board, great special teamer, a leader there for them on the special team side of the ball. Christian Welsh, also a nice special teamer to have. I don't think either one of these guys, Malik Harrison, Chris Board, Christian Welsh, would be super expensive to bring back. In general, though, it's what do you do here? You got your number one guy. I'm not looking to spend big on free agency since you have Roquan Smith under contract. Your just hope is that Simpson comes along. I'd bring back Harrison. I'd bring back Board if you can. Those two guys really give you good depth. And that way, if Simpson isn't quite ready or if you need more help, then those guys can step in and be starters for you. And then maybe you draft somebody on like day 3 just to bring in more competition. Move on to the secondary. And I see a lot of first round selections in the secondary. I do have a little bit of a pushback on that. And here's my reasoning for that. And I do think that they need to add more here. Okay, and I'll be looking at this. I see it more as a day 3 type of need. Nate Wiggins, I think, is going to be a number 1 corner in the NFL at some point. I really like him. I was super impressed with what he showed in his rookie campaign. And yeah, despite the size, he may not be the biggest guy. The dude plays physical, and I thought he showed the physicality in the run game, and he can get better in that department. Overall, though, I think Nate Wiggins is going to be their number 1 cornerback in the long haul. Marlon Humphrey's still their number 1 cornerback, and he has versatile play out on the outside or in the slot. And he was excellent. I mean, he was I thought he was a top tier, top 5 level cornerback this season. He's had some injury issues, but he stayed healthy this season. And as I talk about, he's your number 1 corner going into the next season. He even could work into a contract extension possibly. I'd hold off on that. I'd probably just restructure a little bit. Overall, like Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, if you have those 2 guys as your 1A, 1B cornerback duo, I'm really good with that. Finding that third guy is a little bit easier to do. Stevens was picked upon this season. I'm not against them bringing him back, but I imagine he's going to test free agency, right? And even Eric DeCosta's already kind of hinted that he's going to let him test free agency. So we'll see what he ends up getting or what type of deal that maybe he comes back on a 1-year prove-it situation, like a 1-year, $3 million deal. I definitely think that's in the cards, and I wouldn't hate that. I just think he had a bit of a down season. You do have TJ Tampa, who was a steal, I thought, in the 4th round to get him. So we'll see how he develops. That's why I would lean towards bringing more of a veteran in here to be that third corner / Tre'Davious White, who was good in a limited showing. I thought he was excellent, and I'd just bring him back if you can. So if you can bring back Tre'Davious White, you have TJ Tampa, bring in maybe another veteran in here. Overall, like this is not a huge draft need. I don't think this is a day 1 or a day 2 type of need with Nate Wiggins. If Nate Wiggins didn't look good in his rookie campaign, then I'd say, all right, we need to address this a little bit earlier on and things like that. But with Wiggins and Humphrey, I don't think this is a huge priority. Then finishing up the roster review with the safety position, you have Kyle Hamilton. Darius Washington really stepped up and played very, very well this season. Marcus Williams was the big disappointment, and I think he's going to get cut here very, very soon. They restructured his money to make it a little easier for them. That way they get cap relief right now, but also can release him post June 1st and then save a little more money post the June 1st designation, which will be like $2-3 million or something like that. Anyway, you got Sanusi Kane, who really was a nice special teamer for them, and he could end up working into a rotational player as well. Bo Braid, too. So I think they're in a really good spot here with Sanusi Kane and Bo Braid as special teamers, etc., some depth with Braid. But they need somebody to allow Kyle Hamilton to be the ultimate versatile chess piece, because Kyle Hamilton can go back to being their third corner as well. And that's why I also think cornerback is not necessarily their top priority. I think safety is the bigger need. I think this is the day 2 type of priority. If Malachi Starks falls to them, absolutely, I would consider that. But it's not the number 1 need on this roster. I would just say that adding more safety help would be the bigger of the 2 areas that I am addressing personally over the cornerback position, trying to add another free safety into the room, right? Somebody with some range and some ability to play that deep third and allow Darius Washington, because he can also play in the slot too for them. So I'm going to be looking at more of that versatile back end guy who can be a free roam, free range safety in there. It sounds like I'm talking about eggs out here, but I'm not. Promise, I'm not talking about eggs, even though we could. But yeah, that's really my view on this. This is a day 2 type of priority, sweet spot to find somebody there. I find a Xavier Watts, a Kevin Winston Jr., Andrew Mukaba. Those are all really good options to Mukuba, pardon me, but I always call him Makuba just because I think it's like Lion King name. It's time to move on to the free agency strategy though now, and we're going to start off with a couple of tough cuts. Marcus Williams, I just think it's going to be time at this point. They move some of that money to be able to clear away for 2025 to clear space there, and then also post June 1st in, which is what we're going to do here. Now, post June 1st does not give us the money right away. It is a post June 1st cut, so that $2.64 million will come after June 1st, and that's fine. And same thing with Justin Tucker. With the allegations going on right now, I think it's best that they move on. I know that they've stuck firm and everything like that. We'll see if things continue to get worse or what things like that. Not to mention his play this season was just borderline rough too, so I'm going to post June 1st him. You're allowed 2 post June 1st cuts, and that is what we're going to do here. That'll save us $4.2 million after the 1st of June. And then finally, Arthur Millette. Good player. I really like Millette. He just was injured this season, which makes it unfortunate. We're going to get a little cheaper here, maybe get a little younger as well. That does save us $2.25 million. Not a whole ton of dead cap, and we could use that money elsewhere too. Now let's talk about some restructures here, because they're going to have to make a couple of restructures / contract extensions. We're going to free up a little bit of money with Lamar. As I talked about earlier, he does not have an agent, so that does make things a little bit trickier with that. I don't want to restructure tons and tons either. I want to make sure we're kind of keeping it balanced. I don't want to go all out crazy, because we don't need to sign a ton of free agents. We just need to make sure we'll be able to bring back some of our guys, bring a couple of dudes in here and there. We got a lot of draft picks. We're going to restructure the Lamar $10 million, Marlon Humphrey $12 million, and Roquan $12 million. And then we're going to give Odafe Oweh a contract extension, a 4-year, $72 million with a $20 million signing bonus. It's going to allow us to lower that cap hit next year, which he's currently on the 5th year contract. So that'll get us to save $7 million for the 2025 cap hit. But at the same time, it also extends him for the next 5 seasons. Let's go on to the team re-signs now. And starting off, we're going to re-sign Patrick Ricard, one of the best fullbacks, probably the best lead blocking fullback in the NFL. And in my opinion, he's so vital to this run game. And what he brings to the table as a blocker, it's hard to find. I'm not letting him go. I know he's getting a little bit older now. He's 100% worth the money. 2 years, $8 million. Sign me up. No problem for that one. Tylan Wallace also want to make sure we bring him back. What he showed in just limited sample size, make sure he is a guy that, if nothing else, is a 4th, 5th receiver. 1 year, $2 million, easy. This is where it gets tough. Ronnie Stanley, I let him go. And you're saying, you are crazy. What are you doing? But the money, that's all it came down to here. The financial situation, yes, we do have $42 million, but that goes by quick. We have a lot of players we do need to resign, depth pieces and things like that. Stanley is just going to get too much money elsewhere, in my opinion. Premium left tackles are hard to find, and he is a premium left tackle. So it's just like, I feel like at least if we bring back Patrick Macari, he gives you that versatility to play one of those tackle spots. We could always move Roger Rosengard into left tackle, have Macari play right tackle early on in the season while we draft and develop, and hopefully get somebody like a Roger Rosengard that can develop and be the long-term answer there on a much cheaper contract. So that's what I ultimately decided to do. Patrick Macari is going to be, those kind of rhyme too. Anyway, Patrick Macari is going to be a great, versatile offensive line piece, and keeping him around, I think, is just so important. 2 years, $16 million, not super expensive, $8 million average. It could even be cheaper than that. I feel like that might even be on the high end. I like to, if anything, to go a little bit over than it could be under. So that way it's a little bit better in that regard. We'll also bring back Josh Jones, who in a pinch can go in there and play. Good versatility as well, swingman. On the defense side of the ball, we did bring back some depth here. Brett Urban, Malik Harrison, Chris Board, all give you help there between special teams and rotation. And then Tre'Davious White, he played well for them down the stretch when they picked him up, and he just definitely worth that. So I think he is, bring him in there just under $2 million. That is a good veteran minimum type of deal. I mean, it's more than a vet minimum deal. However, I think he's worth that, if nothing else, as a 4th corner for them. And then I do factor in practice squad guys, and this is mainly from giving the 2nd round tender to our Darius Washington is going to be roughly around $5.2 million. Let's go on to the outside free agent signings now, and it just goes to show you, we're already down to $17 million. Just imagine trying to re-sign Ronnie Stanley. As I talk about it, just such a difficult one. And you can restructure more, and I get that. But at some point, I don't want to restructure too much. You got to be smart. You got to know that you're going to restructure a little bit, but you also have to be long-term financially viable. And that's why I let him go. Now, talking about some of the outside free agents we signed, starting off with Tyler Huntley, Snoop Huntley, we bring him back. Hey, $1.2 million, not expensive. And as I talked about earlier, they just don't seem to spend a whole ton on backup quarterbacks, so we're going to keep it pretty cheap. Teddy Bridgewater would be an option if he wanted to come in here. You know, there's a lot of guys. I know he's going to go probably coach high school again. There's CJ Beathard. There's a lot of guys. If Snoop didn't want to come back, I'm just throwing him out there. He knows the organization. Now, we are going to sign on the defense side of the ball Mike Jackson, 1 year, $6.5 million. I think he played excellent for Carolina this season. And for that 1 year deal, he gets to come somewhere that can win him a Super Bowl. So it's motivation for him. And at the same time, it brings somebody in here that can be a really good number 3 cornerback. He can play on the outside and gives you that versatility still with Marlon Humphrey to play in the slot, play on the outside. just really like the way Mac Jackson played in elements. He had to stick up as the number one corner there at Carolina at times. And their secondary wasn't great. Mike Jackson's not perfect, but I think if he comes in here as your number 3 corner, I think that'll be really, really good and help them out in that secondary some more, give you at least some more depth. And then we allocate $9 million. It could be anywhere from like $8 to $11 million. Depends on, how many UDFAs and et ceteras and things like that they pick up. But overall, and how many guys they sign up their draft picks. We're going to budget in $9 million, and that gets us just in the comfort space cap-wise. Let's go ahead and talk about the roster one more time before we get into the draft and highlight needs. With the offensive line, left tackle being the big void. I have Patrick McCarry right now shuffled in there. As I talked about earlier, though, Roger Rosengarten could be the left tackle. You put McCarry at right tackle, and that might actually be the better idea, in my opinion. That's what I would probably do. But McCarry's really solid veteran. He might earn that left tackle position. You go into camp and figure that out. We're going to be addressing that tackle position. Absolutely. We're not going into this offseason with these guys right now. We're going to make sure we add into that room. Interior, we'll try to add somebody on day 3. It's not a high priority. I think that McCarry, we'll try to get him back to the inside, but Voorhees can compete for sure as well. But Falalele stepping up. Obviously, Linderbaum's a beast. Now, the other areas I'm going to be looking at, though, here is going to be, especially on like late day 2, early day 3, is a tight end to be able to develop for Mark Andrews going into last year of his contract. And then also a X type of wide receiver. So we'll look at that probably on like a day 3 type of pick to at least add some more help. We got Tez Walker, and we also got Tylan Wallace back. I still want to make sure we add a little bit more help there. We didn't add anybody in free agency. And then on the defense side of the ball, my number one priority, I would say, would be between the interior of the defensive line and the safety position. So it depends on how the board falls, and those areas could be interchangeable depending on who is available. Overall, though, I want to add more presence. We need to take a little bit more pressure off Nnamdi Madubuike, allow him to not get double teamed so much. Let's get some more depth at the nose tackle position. So trying to find somebody that can be a pass rusher and a nose tackle. That's why I think this is going to be an area we allocate 2 draft picks to. And I think they're relatively early draft picks as well. Now, the nose tackle, we could probably be more looking at like a day 3 type of pick. And then safety-wise, we're going to be looking at on day 2. I think there's a lot of good players there. As I talked about earlier, guys like Xavier Watt, Kevin Winston, there's Andrew Makuba. There's a lot of guys that we can find, fill that free safety role for them, and allow our Darius Washington to maybe even go into the slot, Kyle Hamilton, to play versatile roles on their defense. Linebacker, I'll say a day 3, late day 3, somewhere in there, find a little more depth. And cornerback, you can always find a little more depth on day 3, but that's not an early need in my opinion, especially Mike Jackson coming in. You got Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins, Tre'Davious White, and TJ Tampa as your 4th, 5th corner. I think they're in a really good spot here. Christian Matthew, Jalen Armour-Davis, we'll see if he can get healthy, but anyway, he's going to be competing for a roster spot. It is draft time, and we are on the clock now. Baltimore, let's go. Let's get serious. With their first pick, Josh Connolly Jr., tackle, Oregon. One of my guys in this class, huge fan of Connolly. Yeah, he didn't have the greatest Senior Bowl. I still look at what his tape and what he showed there at Oregon. He's a super young player. Let him be the long-term left tackle. Roger Rosengarten, you've got yourself 2 young star tackles in the making. And obviously, if Connolly's not ready to go early on, McCarry can play. You got Josh Jones back as well. So in general, I feel pretty dang good about this tackle room. It's not going to be perfect. There'll probably be some growing pains, just like there was at the beginning of the season last year. However, I think long-term, they're in a very good spot. Connolly is an excellent pass protector, going to keep Lamar clean, and he's also great on the move as a run blocker. On to round number 2, Kevin Winston Jr., the safety, Penn State. He was out for primarily the entirety of the season, played a couple of games, got injured in that second game versus Bowling Green, and unfortunately out for the year. However, he has got that range. He's got great tackling ability. He's got good instincts and coverage. He is going to be that true free safety back-end player that they desperately need after letting go of Marcus Williams. This allows our Darius Washington. It allows Kyle Hamilton to play more, versatile roles in the defense as well. So Winston, really good value in this second round to find somebody in that back end to help out their secondary. On to round number 3. I'm going with Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, the ever-explosive pass rusher. Yeah, he's a little undersized. He's just a little overshade over 6 foot, 289. But I'm totally fine with him being a rotational player behind Broderick Washington early on. However, I think he'll long-term can fill that role. With Broderick Washington, he still is under contract. However, I just think that they need to add more juice. They need to add another pass rusher, somebody else that can get to the quarterback on that interior. I feel like Peebles can be a great add for them as a situational pass rusher early on, and then long-term, at least be a number 3 interior player for them with Jones and Madubuike. And then on to the 4th round, we're going Pat Bryant, Illinois wide receiver. He's going to be that bigger bodied wide receiver on the outside. I still think he can still add a little more muscle mass. Anyway, just over 6'2", 208 pounds. He is going to be more of that go up and get it type of receiver that maybe they don't have right now. So I just felt like it'd be a good skill set to have if that's something that they want. If not, then maybe someone like Ty Felton, who's a really good route runner, slot mechanic type of dude that they could add in here. There's a lot of different types of receivers, but with Wallace, with Walker, now you add in Bryant, you're just trying to add in who's going to be that long-term number 3 wide receiver with Bateman and with Zay Flowers. Said we weren't done on the interior, and I felt like the value here with Jamari Caldwell is going to be excellent in this 4th round. And what he showed at the Senior Bowl, like I was thinking about him, I'm like, oh, he's probably going to go 5th, 6th round, somewhere in there. He rose up big time after the Senior Bowl. This guy has a lot more juice than I thought he had. He looks really explosive in the one-on-ones, and I do think he can add some pass rush. Now, I think he's going to be more or less a really good nose/one tech in the NFL level, and that's exactly what I'm drafting him to be, is a really solid Michael Pierce long-term replacement, which I think is going to be really, really important to make sure you're keeping Travis Jones fresh and throughout the entirety of the season. Make sure we have that good rotation on that interior defensive line. Caldwell's a really good run defender. Everybody talks about Derek Harmon, but Jamari Caldwell made a lot of those plays and cleaned a lot of those blocks to make life easier for everybody on that defensive line. You talk about Mateo Uyunglele. You talk about Jordan Burch. There's a lot of good players, and Caldwell's another one of those guys. On to the 5th round. I'm going Thomas Fidone, tight end, Nebraska. Feel like he's an underrated player. Just dealing with injuries is the big thing for him. And that's going to be the medicals you got to check out there. But in terms of the talent, this guy is as athletic. I mean, he's a really athletic guy. He's a really good mover. He's got strong hands, too. He's a really good receiver. And Nebraska struggled a little bit this season. Dylan Raiola had a bit of a struggle some season as well. So some of that's on the offense. And also the scheme, too. They changed over where they didn't really use tight ends a whole ton. So there's that. But Fidone, I think it'd be a borderline steal, whoever gets him, as long as the medicals check out. The tools are there. And he kind of reminds me a little bit like a Zach Ertz. He has a lot of similar traits to him. On to our next pick here, and we're going to take Tyler Cooper from Minnesota. I've not watched him, so I've just seen highlights and things like that. So I'm not going to go in a full scouting report. But he has played right guard. He has versatility on that interior. And he's just somebody that you draft, you develop, maybe you hit, maybe you don't. I want to make sure we're bolstering that interior as well, making sure we have enough depth on the interior of the offensive line too. And here's the same reasoning with Robert Longerbeam, who I actually have done a scouting report on Longerbeam. I like this guy a lot. He has some Ardarius Washington type qualities to him. While he's undersized, he's super feisty. He plays with his hair on fire. And even going back to him covering Marvin Harrison Jr., yeah, he lost a couple of goal line reps on him. Overall, though, like he was playing him tough throughout the entire game. And in general, like the 3 games that I watched in the summer scouting breakdown with Robert Longerbeam, I was really impressed. He's a fluid guy. He's, like I talked about, solid and runs the sport considering his size limitations, which will be limitations and will show up a little more at the NFL level. However, I think that he's going to be a great fit for them and add another element, rotational player in the slot, and even could develop into a hybrid safety for them. Who knows? But hey, I'm just trying to draft a little bit more depth since we let go of Arthur Millette here in the later rounds. To our next pick in the 6th round, going Jackson Woodard from UNLV. He was a leader for that team, and I think he's going to be a really good special teamer and somebody that could compete for a roster spot down the line, and who knows, be a contributor. He certainly has the instincts. Does he have the sideline to sideline range? Probably not. But as I was talking about, I think he'll be a really, really solid special teamer and could possibly be a starter down the line. With the instincts that he has, I'm cool with that. And a lot of times with these linebackers, if you've got determination, if you got grit, if you got instincts, you can play and you can outperform a lot of these super athletic linebackers that get drafted early. On to the 6th round here, I'm drafting a kicker. Ryan Fitzgerald, Florida State kicker. I've really liked Fitzgerald. He's improved so much through his career as well. And this season, he was excellent, and I think he's going to be at least compete, all right? I'm not saying you have to draft a kicker here, but I want to make sure we're at least addressing it. They could even add another punter. Now, that's something I probably would do in free agency or in UDFA, get somebody there to bring some more competition with Stout. But overall, I want to add a kicker in here. They still may want to bring somebody else in here, but I feel like it's worth drafting somebody, and Fitzgerald can maybe be the long-term answer for the kicker. Final pick of the draft, I'm going with Jack Conley. I know we had another Conley. Well, we got Conley, now we got Conley. We added in Cooper, but Conley's going to be more of a swing tackle for them, / he does have versatility play on the inside as well. I want to make sure we're bolstering this offensive line depth as much as we possibly can. We've lost some guys, So I think it's very critical. And long term, Conley maybe can be the swing tackle for them. With even though we signed Josh Jones back for another year, we still need to find maybe the long-term swing tackle for this team, and Conley maybe could be that guy, has versatility play on both sides. So that is the draft. Let's go and recap everything up here. Start off with the coaching. Make it real quick. I don't think they need to do a whole ton here. I know people talk, oh, John Harbaugh, should you move on from him? I think that'd be silly. Yes, they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while, but, he's built a credible roster. I think he's a really good coach, and ultimately, I think that'd be really silly to fire him just because they haven't won a Super Bowl in a minute. Overall, coaching staff, obviously, Munkin's one of the best, I think, offensive coordinators already in the NFL. They just gave him a raise. And Eric DeCosta, great GM. They're in a really good spot overall. Now, roster-wise, there are some areas they need to improve upon. Starting with the offensive line, we did lose Ronnie Stanley in free agency in this case scenario. Maybe they bring him back in real. But for me, keeping that money, trying to make sure we stay strong cap-wise is really important. Josh Connolly, Ariante Urshri, there's some guys that they can get at the back end of the draft that I feel like can compete early on to be starters for them, get on cheaper deals. Josh Connolly Jr. would be the dream pick. If he falls there, I'm running to the board. I'm taking him. He'll be a great blindside protector. You got Roger Rosengarten. We did draft Jack Conley as well to be a swing tackle for them. So we got Josh Jones back too. So there's your tackle room, those 4 guys. And then Macari also can be a swingman for them to play tackle in a pinch. If Connolly wasn't ready, then Macari can play over at one of those tackle spots early on. And speaking of Macari, we did bring him back. I love the versatility that he brings to the table. Keep him at left guard, or at least you have competition with Voorhees. And if Macari is just a swing tackle, I know you're paying him. We paid him $8 million. That'd be a lot to play as a swing tackle or a swing offensive lineman. Still think he's worth some having around us some depth. You're going to need it for injuries. It just happens every single year. You need a 6 offense line. And my quote is, or my philosophy, you're only as good as your 6 offensive lineman. I'm sure somebody had a quote on that, but that to me is a huge thing. And then we go on to the tight end room and receivers. We add some more help here too. Thomas Fidone is going to be able to draft and develop for a season behind Mark Andrews, and hopefully long-term he can fill that void. And then at wide receiver, we had another outside weapon with Pat Bryant, who could be more that X-style go-ball winner. And then we didn't add anything at quarterback or running back in terms of the draft. I did add in Tyler Huntley. Snoop Huntley's back, so hey, why not? Defensively-wise, I focused on at the safety position and on the defensive interior. Those, to me, are the 2 big areas. Aeneas Peebles, and then also adding in Jamari Caldwell. Caldwell is more of that nose 1 tech, and then Peebles is more of the 3 tech, hybrid 5 tech, pass rushing specialist early on. Help out Broderick Washington. Make sure you're getting some more juice on the interior, which at times I feel like the pass rush was a little inconsistent and didn't always get home as much as I would like it. So I think they need to add some more pass rush on this defensive line. And safety-wise, adding more of a true safety in there. We're going to get Kelvin Winston in that 2nd round, who will be that free safety for this team. And they play plenty of single high too, so he's going to be able to have that range to cover. I did add in Jackson Woodard in the late rounds as some more depth at linebacker. Same thing at cornerback with Robert Longerbeam. Just some more help in the back end. So that's really what we did here for the Baltimore Ravens. Let me know what you think, agree or disagree. What would you do differently, Ravens fans, or just fans of football? Hope you guys have a really cool day, though. I'll talk to you later, Raven.